Hey guys, so with all this talk about how important and therapeutic it is to express your true feelings, I have a question for you. Is it okay to get royally ticked off once in a while?
Um, I don't know. Anger sucks, whether you're at the receiving end of it or you're the one who's about to lose your cool.
Well, yeah, anger isn't a pleasant thing. But does that mean we should avoid it at all costs?
Well, I would if I could. I mean, doesn't the Bible say, "Be ye angry and sin not, let not the sun go down upon your wrath"? That's Ephesians 4:26, right?
Okay, stop right there. No need to bring the Bible into this.
Well, he has a point though. Regardless of how religious you consider yourself, let's face it, most of us who grew up in the Western Hemisphere come from Judeo Christian backgrounds, and that's where most of our perceptions of anger come from.
So, I was right. To hell with anger.
Where did that come from?
Well, how can you be angry but not have it be a bad thing? Is that even possible?
Okay, let's take things back a bit. First, let's get the basics out of the way. Being angry at something someone did is not the same as condemning the person themselves.
Yes, an oldie but a goodie. Hate the sin but not the sinner.
I think it's a bunch of rhetoric. How can you possibly even separate the two? I think saying this is just a way of getting around the issue and giving yourself an excuse.
There you go again, bashing on those of us who believe in those principles. Let me tell you how to separate the two. You may hate what the person did, but you still would wish a good fortune on them.
And wishing a good fortune means what, exactly?
You wouldn't want them to go to hell. That's what.
Hold on. I think you're both right.
Now how is that possible?
Let me give you an example. Let's say I let a distant relative stay at my house because they got kicked out of the apartment they were renting and have nowhere to go. After I go to bed, this person proceeds to go through my purse that I left on the counter, steals the money that was in an envelope intended for my rent, and disappears for good.
Wow, that would tick me off big time.
Absolutely. So, not only am I short on rent, I feel violated, betrayed in my best intentions, played for a fool, left stranded. You bet I'm pissed off.
But are you angry at what he did, or the person himself? After all, you said to separate the two.
I'm getting to that. And look, maybe I have way too much faith in the goodness of humankind, but I don't think very many people actually rise to the level of wickedness of wishing someone who has made them mad like this to die and go to hell.
So, wish they'd have a flat tire on their way instead?
Yeah, something like that.
Or get pulled over and go to jail?
Yup, sure.
What about 7 years of bad luck?
Hands down, yes. But death and hell? No.
My point exactly. There are very few people who are so wicked that they would wish someone to die and go to hell, no matter what they did. And this means you're off the hook. Be angry all you want, you're not hating the sinner as long as you don't want them to go to hell. But wishing the rest of any kind of misfortune on them is perfectly fine. Hypocritical as it gets. You're either angry or you're not.
No, I'm not sure I agree. But I must admit, I don't know how you can hate the sin, but not the sinner. Maybe Helena will shed some light on that.
Yes, but let's start with the basics first. What is anger?
Let's start with a few background facts from bioenergetic psychology. Anger is an emotion. What else is new, right? Well, we've got to start somewhere. It will all make sense in a little bit, I promise. Anyway, so what's an emotion?
Herm. Emotion. Like email, e-bike, e-book.
Are you nuts?
No, wait a minute. That's not a bad example, actually. Let's run with this for a bit. Emotion is a motion of energy. Ebook, email, energy is involved, right? So what our senses perceive is a movement, a change of energy in our body. Energy is what stands behind and powers up our emotions.
Until recently, the studies of energies in our body for the most part have been associated with pseudoscience and Eastern religions, chakras, yoga, and so on. However, biological energy is as much a part of creation, no different than electrical energy or any other form of it for that matter.
And since anger is an emotion, then that means.
It exists for a reason.
Bingo.
But I thought we agreed that being angry or having someone be angry at you sucks. How can it be anything other than a problem? Anger is awful and ugly and unpleasant.
Here's the thing. Nature, which as we said earlier includes emotions, can be corrupted. The problem here lies not in anger itself, but in the corruption of it, in its misunderstanding and misuse.
Whoa, I feel like soon you'll be telling us anger can be a positive thing.
How did you know?
Wait, what?
Anger can also be a very helpful tool when used correctly in its proper balance.
Did you say use anger? Sounds like some kind of supervillain origin story.
Now, don't let the word scare you. Like I said, it will all make sense in a little bit, I promise. But corruption is the key word here. Corruption as in deviation from the original or the original purpose. As we said earlier, the emotion of anger is a type of energy. So think energy. Energy is energy is energy. It's what you do with it that matters. Energy is a thing, a part of the creation, just like anything else part of nature, right? Let me give you an example. Let's say electrical energy. It can be used to heat up the house for the winter, or it can be used to electrocute someone in an electric chair that we've invented and we're using this energy for, right? Or nuclear energy can be used for mass destruction, as we all know, or for an efficient power. See, it's how you use that energy that matters. So when we use it for a wrong purpose, it's corruption, it's deviation from the original purpose of that thing. And the same concept applies to the energy of anger. Yes, just like nuclear energy, it can be very destructive, but it exists for a reason. If we don't know what that reason is, we need to rediscover.
So anger has a purpose?
Yes, exactly. And this is coming up in our future discussions. But for now, let me just give you a sneak peek. Anger was created as a survival mechanism. So one of its main purposes, remember how I said we needed to discover the reason why the energy of anger exists in the first place, right? So one of its main purposes is to signal danger when our boundaries are violated. One of its main purposes is to signal danger when our boundaries are violated. So it guards our boundaries. And when it guards our boundaries, it thus serves to protect us, to prevent the destruction of our true, authentic self, prevent the destruction of our unique being, of our unique self. This is just one of the reasons for the existence of anger. There are other reasons too, but again, we will cover those in our future meetings. For now,
Exactly. Jumping a bit ahead, in our future sessions we will be discussing that there are two types of anger. Anger A is this survival mechanism. It's a signal that our boundaries have been violated. And there is also anger type B. This is a type of anger that comes from when our potential is being misapplied.
For now, tell me what to do. Can I give myself permission to be angry? And if so, when is it okay? And when isn't it?
And not yet. That's also in the future discussion.
Please! How come he gets a hint and I don't?
Okay. Remember how we've been talking proper balance and that good, original, before any corruption sets in purpose for anything, from nuclear energy to anger, right? So, well, in a nutshell, everything, but in our subject of discussion, every emotion, obviously, including anger, can and does exist in its original, corruption-free, so to say, purpose. The purpose that it's actually here for, in its best state, in its best application. If you've read the Demystifying Bad Luck book, what we're talking about here is the archetypal states. But we'll get to that. So even if you haven't read the book, don't worry, we will be discussing this concept shortly. Let's not get into this now. I just wanted to draw a connection here for those who are already familiar with the term to put everything in a little bit more perspective for them. But again, nothing to worry about. Just make yourself a mental note that we'll be talking about archetypes further down the line. So this is how something gets out of balance. The best way to picture this is imagine a pendulum swing, right? Pendulum swing. If this is the norm, then there either may not be enough of energy, force, not enough, or there could be too much of a good thing, so to say, too potent and overkill for the situation. So if this is the norm, then if it swings one way or the other, it means it's either not present as it should, or it's present too much, sort of.
So it's about balancing energy. Interesting. It's about not letting your anger get out of control, I suppose.
But still not very helpful. I mean, if we go back to that example about the red bunny, would you be justified to give yourself permission to let the rage loose? Anger has a purpose after all, right? Maybe that falls into that category.
Let's face it, anger feels icky. It makes us do stupid things. It can be dangerous when uncontrolled. Justifying things like these would be hypocritical to begin with, but also pointless and non-productive. When we justify something, we also internalize it. You would not want this emotion to become a part of you for good, and in this sense, it is good to remember that anger is still negative.
But it's not like you can just stop feeling anger. In fact, kicking yourself in the butt for feeling it would only result in a vicious circle of self-blame. Wishing you hadn't lashed out, but then feeling like you had the right to. Rinse and repeat.
All right, all right. I think I may have a solution here. Let's recognize anger for what it is. Energy that can be applied the right way or the wrong.
As Helena said earlier, anger plays an important role in our lives, or at least, it should. Unfortunately, many of us lack the emotional intelligence to understand what our emotions signal to us and how to interpret them. We've lost touch with ourselves to the point of where we may even disregard this part of our being completely, relying primarily on the intellect alone. So, this leaves only one way to apply the emotion of anger, the wrong way.
Oh boy, I don't think I want to risk going the wrong way. What if I just try my best to hold it inside? I mean, If it's not the feeling but the action that's wrong, maybe I can just sit on my hands, close my eyes, and do nothing.
We will get into those wrong ways and right ways more deeply in our next discussions. But for now, spoiler alert, no, this will not work. You would be shocked if you saw the latest studies on this in the statistics. Carrying around unexpressed anger, reportedly and scientifically confirmed, right? Carrying around unexpressed anger creates depression, mind fog, confusion, difficulty making decisions. It also increases the risk of heart disease tenfold. Well, to be more specific, 857 whopping percent.
Helen is right. Unexpressed anger is a health risk. When you're angry, the body goes into a hyper-alert state, pumping up your heart rate, increasing blood pressure, and releasing certain hormones. Now, when you don't deal with that anger, the body can stay in that state of stress, leading to issues like headaches, chronic pain, hypertension, and even eventual death by heart attack.
Yeah, I also heard that undeal with anger puts you on the train to crazy town. It can eventually turn someone from an innocent, full of love baby to a serial killer.
Yes, that too. So all those above mentioned ailments and disorders come from bottled anger, right? And yes, undealt with anger is also the neurological pathways to psychopathic disorders.
Oh boy, guess I'll have to wait for the next posts then. But for now, what can I do?
The short answer is face it, understand it, and deal with it. What is this anger telling you? Often, it is giving you an important alert. Imagine a military radar buzzing when it has detected an enemy's airplane entering your sovereign airspace. It's prudent to pay attention in those cases. But do you go firing your entire nuclear arsenal the moment you hear the radar buzz? No! You use this signal to properly evaluate the situation and act accordingly. It's the same mechanism when it comes to anger.
Easier said than done.
Yes, it will take practice, but you'll never get good at anything if you don't start practicing mastery at some point. And so what I want you to do today is make the first step. Remember, it's okay to be angry. That emotion is in us for a reason. But do not get carried away with the first impulse of anger. It's most likely wrong. Do not carry this negative emotion around with you either. Do not hang on to it or bottle it up. Learn to understand what anger means. Learn and practice emotional intelligence so that you can properly decipher what this anger is telling you and how and where you can use it.
Okay, so this is step 1. Resolve to understand what anger means. And step 2 will be in the next session, right?
And 3 and 4. This is a new skill that you will have to learn, but as our discussion showed today, this is also a solution that is not being used in our day and age, and this is why we have so much conflict and confusion around us.
Let me sum this up. Trying to get rid of anger is not the solution. Trying to manage its effects, as it's done in traditional anger management, is not a solution either.
Because if you let yourself simply react when you feel anger, you're probably going to do the wrong thing, like she said.
And holding it in simply will not work. Anger is an autonomous reaction in our body, which means that you have as much control over it as you do over other processes of this nature, such as sweating, sneezing, farting, and so on. Although you can be successful some of the times, nature will finally take its course.
And in the future post, I'll tell you how I handled the stealing of the rent money, and it all will make a lot more sense. But for now, let me just leave you with this. The way you get angry but sin not, so to say, is that you make a point to deal with your anger immediately, best before the day is over and the sun goes down. Deal with it. Understand what your emotions are trying to tell you. Knowing that anger is a survival mechanism designed to protect the integrity of our being, ask yourself, now that I feel angry, what boundaries have been violated? Knowing that anger can mean misapplied potential, ask yourself, where could my potential be better applied? Just this realization alone that anger is not just a random thing that happens to you, but something that has a reason and a purpose will often be enough to help you not get carried away by applying this energy in a wrong way, as in a way that it wasn't meant to be applied.
And when you apply it in a way that it wasn't meant to be applied, this is when you miss the mark and derail. It's interesting to note that the Hebrew word for sin also means getting off key or missing the mark.
This is enough to work on for now. Diagnose your anger when it first comes and think what the purpose behind it may be. Protecting your boundaries or signaling misuse potential. We will be discussing all this in more detail in our future sessions.
So, conclusion. Learn the lessons anger is trying to teach you and use this energy properly. This might just be the tool that you're missing for living a better